Oh.
Hey, I know that sound. It's time for the beer and the news report.
Hi, and welcome to the Beer News Report. Cheers. As you can see, I got a new fan. Her name is Penelope Mendoza, and she's the daughter of my next door neighbor, Emmanuel. She's a cutie. If I can just get her in a report. Well, maybe in 10 years. Today I'm drinking Hellosaurus Rex. Yeah, it's a Hell's Lager by Oakland United Brewery. Hell's Lager, I'm not sure what the Hells means, but I believe it's German and it's leaning towards the pale style of a beer. Now, I like lager beers, but the pale style means it has a hint of hoppiness, so it makes this beer average. Lager's good, Hell's style, not so good, so it averages it out. I think you should give it a taste and tell me what you think. Cheers. This is my nephew Cohen, and he's holding an award for playing chess. He's been playing with my dad and anyone else who likes chess. I like chess, and I played some games with him when I was out there in Vermont. At my best, I had a rating of about 1500, so I'm okay at chess. But I noticed that he lacks some tactics when it comes to playing. So this show is dedicated to Cohen, and it's going to be on the basics of chess and also some cool traps. So grab a beer and a chessboard if you want to follow along in like 3D, and let's get this show started. Cheers. The first video is on chess tactics. Now this is from a YouTube channel called Chess Talk by Jitendra Advani. I like his channel. He has a lot of educational chess videos. I will put his link in the description, but here's a handful of tactics that I use.
Let's look at this game. White plays rook to c7, placing a double attack on the knight and bishop. Since black can only save one of them, white will win a piece, and that's the main idea behind a fork. Remember, you can fork with all your pieces, including a pawn. This is an example of a fork with a knight. This is a fork with a bishop. Here's a fork with a queen. This is how you can fork with your king. And finally, this is a fork with a pawn. A pin occurs when a piece is held in place and can't move without giving up a more valuable piece behind it. In this game, white plays queen to h8, pinning this bishop. Black cannot move his bishop since the king is behind it, and therefore white will win this bishop. There are two types of pins, an absolute pin and a relative pin. When a piece is pinned to the king, it is called an absolute pin. The pinned piece just cannot move in this case. It would be illegal if he tries to move his knight here. Therefore, it's an absolute pin. On the other hand, a relative pin is when a piece is pinned to another piece of greater value and not the king. In this case, the knight is pinned to the queen. So even though black can legally move his knight, but it would be a terrible move because he would then lose his queen. Hence it's a relative pin. Remember, you can pin only with three pieces, the queen, the rook and the bishop. A skewer is an attack on two pieces that are lined up with one another. The first piece is the more valuable piece. When it moves out of the way, the less valuable piece behind it is captured. In this case, king moves, the queen is captured. In fact, you can think of a skewer as an opposite of the pin. In a pin, the less valuable piece is in the front, whereas in a skewer, the more valuable piece is in the front. Just like the pin, you can skewer only with three pieces, the queen, the rook, and the bishop. A discovered attack occurs when one piece moves and uncovers an attack by another piece. In this game, white moves his bishop, and by doing so, we can say that he has launched a discovered attack on this knight. We can also call this a discovered double attack since he is also attacking this rook with his bishop. Since black cannot save both of them in one move, white will win material and gain a solid advantage. A very effective form of discovered attack is the discovered check. This occurs when the third piece checks the opposing king. In this game, white moves his rook and uncovers a discovered check on the black king. Once the king moves, white can capture this knight and gain a match-winning advantage. Another powerful form of the discovered check is the discovered double check. A double check is more dangerous because with this, not only the hidden piece attacks the king, but also the piece that moves. Have a look at this game. White plays knight to f5 and it's a double check. Not only is the queen attacking the enemy king, but also this knight. Whenever it's a double check, the enemy king has to move. In this game, since there is no safe square for the king to go, it's a brilliant checkmate. Next on our list is a tactic called windmill. It's a rare tactic in which a repeated discovered check allows one piece to go on a rampage, capturing multiple enemy pieces. Let's take a look. In this game, white first sacrifices his queen and then captures on g7 with a check. He then begins a series of checks which are all forced and inescapable by black. This leads to a series of captures as you can see, and eventually white ends up with a huge material advantage. Under promotion means promoting a pawn to a piece less than a queen, which means promoting a pawn to a knight, rook, or a bishop. There could be many reasons for under promoting. It could be to stop an opponent's threat, to deliver a deadly checkmate, to prevent a stalemate, or to achieve something even better than what a queen could offer. In this game, for example, white played this brilliant move combination, and after under promoting to a knight, he managed to come out on top.
That was pretty cool, huh? There's actually 24 tactics that he shows, but these are just a handful of the ones that I use. Next, I'm going to show you some opening moves. Just the two that I like is if I'm white, the London opening, and if I'm black, the Stafford Gambit. All right, so I'm going to show you them. Here's the London opening. Cheers.
So how do you play the London system and immediately start annoying your opponents today? White pushes the queen's pawn forward 2 squares. Black copies, and now comes the defining move of the system known as the London. The bishop comes out to the f4 square right here. White wants to push this pawn here to protect the d-pawn, and then let the other bishop out to this square here. The London develops the other bishop first so that the pawn, when it moves to e3, wasn't blocking the bishop on f4 like it would have been on its original square of c1.
It's a pretty basic opening if you're white. It develops the pieces and gets you ready for your middle game. Now, if you're black, I hope to do, the Stafford Gambit. It doesn't always happen, but if it does, here's how you do it. Cheers.
With the Stafford Gambit, you follow the first 2 moves of white. White moves his king's pawn, you move your king pawn. White then moves his knight, you move your knight, following the exact same move. Now white will then take your free pawn, do not take their pawn. This is where the copying stops. You move out your knight and offer it as a gambit. When white takes your knight, you take back with your pawn. White will then attack your knight, you move your knight to a safe position. White then brings out his bishop, you bring out your queen. That white will return the bishop back to safety and protect the king. You then attack the pawn, and this is an easy checkmate. Now this is the polite way to do the Stafford Gambit, but some people like to be butchers, and a butcher is someone who likes to just kill pieces even though there's an easy checkmate. So again, doing the Stafford Gambit, you follow white. White moves their pawn out, you follow. White moves their knight out, you follow with that. Then white will take your pawn, you offer your other knight. White takes that, you take back with your pawn. White comes and attacks your knight, you move your knight to safety. White will then bring out their bishop, you follow with your queen. The bishop goes out to protect the king, but this time you take the pawn with the knight. The queen is protecting the knight, so white can't take your knight. Then white will bring out their other knight to protect their queen, as your knight is in prime position to kill a queen. But instead, you take the rook. White will do some other move. You bring your knight back. White has their other knight back out to protect the queen. You now take the queen. They will take back with the knight. I take the pawn and he develops his knight. I take another pawn. He brings out his pawn to develop his bishop. I check his king and he moves it. I check it again. He hides it behind the pawn. I take his pawn and pin his knight. He moves his bishop to open a lane for his rook. But now I take his bishop. He moves his light squared bishop to safety and prepares to attack. I take his knight and call check. He moves his king. I pin his pawn while attacking his bishop. He moves his bishop back to attack my queen while the pawn protects it. I move my queen back, but still pinning the pawn. His rook checks my king, but my bishop blocks it. He attacks with his bishop because he sees checkmate coming. I kill his bishop. He moves a pawn as there is nothing else to do. I bring my bishop down to prepare for checkmate. His pawn can't kill my bishop because it's pinned by my queen. As a last gasp of life, he takes his rook and calls check. My king takes the rook. His king tries to run away, but my queen attacks it, and it is checkmate. Okay, so those are the 2 openings that I like to do. Now for the fun stuff, chess traps or gambits. Just so you know, a gambit is when you sacrifice a piece to improve your position. It's very common. Here's one that I learned in high school when I was on the chess team. It's called the scholar's trap.
Why? I have no idea. But it's easy and most beginners will fall for it. First off, note that there's one pawn on the whole row that only has one defender, and it's the king. This is the weakest pawn in the row, and this is going to be the one that we're going to attack. So here's a look at the scholar's trap. Cheers.
You are white. You move your king's pawn, and black does the same. Very common start. Now you move your queen out, and in line with that weak pawn I talked about. Black moves his knight in front of his king. You move your bishop also in line with that weak pawn. Black moves his other knight to protect his pawn. You take the weak pawn with your queen, and it's checkmate. This is very quick and easy. Makes the game real fun. I do this one all the time, but it only works once. After that, that player who you're playing with will know it and won't fall for it again because it's kind of embarrassing, right? It takes like only 5 moves. All right, the next trap is also quick and easy. It's called the Fishbowl Trap. I don't know who names these or what's the story behind it, but that's what this one's called. So here is the Fishbowl Trap. Cheers.
It's a good one for beginners. It starts out with e4, e5, then knight to f3, attacking the pawn, then knight to c6, defending the pawn. Now you have bishop to b5, getting ready to castle, and knight to f6. Now they castle to get their king to safety, and you play knight to g4, and usually they'll play h3 to kick your knight away, but now you play h5, and they think maybe you didn't notice that your knight's hanging, and they'll just take it, and now, okay, you lost a knight, but their knight's under attack. Where does their knight go? Well, if their knight goes back to e1, now you play queen to h4, and there's no way to stop checkmate. Right here, your queen's coming down to checkmate, so they might play f3, and now you just move the pawn forward, and now there's no way for the king to escape. If they move the rook up to give the king an escape square, you just come back here to h1 and checkmate. And that's called the Fishbowl Trap.
So that was the Fishbowl Trap. Now is the England Gambit, and you need to be playing black. Actually, on almost all these next ones, you're going to have to be playing black. The opening is with the King's Pawn Gambit. Here, check it out. Cheers.
Here's my favorite gambit. It's the England Gambit. It starts out with d4, e5, and then they accept the gambit by capturing the pawn, and then you bring your knight out to c6 to attack the pawn, knight to f3 to defend the pawn, and now queen to e7, attacking the pawn. And now they usually play bishop to f4, defending the pawn, and now queen to b4, checking the king, attacking the bishop, and attacking the b2 pawn. And when they play the best move, which is bishop back to d2, you just take the pawn here, attacking the rook, and now here's where they might fall into a trap. If they play bishop to c3, attacking your queen, defended by the knight here, they think they're protecting their rook, but now you play bishop to b4, pinning the bishop to the king, and now it's basically a lost game for white. The worst possible move they can do here is breaking the pin with the queen here, and now you just take the bishop, they take back, and here's checkmate. But they might take the bishop here and realize what's going on, and then you take with the knight, and now the rook is still under attack, so they need to bring the knight out so the queen can defend the rook. Knight to d2, knight captures c2. The king has nowhere to go. Queen has to capture the knight here, and then you take back with the queen.
These traps are pretty cool, don't you think? The next one's called the Lasker Trap, and it's going to be the last one. So here goes, and of course, cheers.
And pawn to c4, the Queen's Gambit, and we play pawn to e5, the Alban counter gambit. They will capture, and now we push up to d4, and to try and get rid of this very annoying pawn, they will play pawn to e3 here. Now we play a check with our bishop, they will block the check for their own bishop, and now we actually capture on e3. This might look like a blunder because then they can capture our bishop, but this is losing due to pawn takes on f2. Now they cannot capture back because then they simply lose their queen, so instead they have to play king up to e2, and we would love to play bishop to g4 here and skewer them, but they can block with the knight, so we have to capture their knight with our pawn first. But we cannot take and promote to a queen because then they can capture, we capture back, and now they take the queen, and this is a dead even position. Instead we capture, but we promote to a knight. That way it comes with a check. That way after they capture, now we play bishop to g4 skewering, they move, we simply capture their queen, and we're just completely winning.
Okay, that's all I have for chess today. YouTube has so many chess videos that if you really want to get serious, you can go to YouTube and just learn so much more. I hope that you keep on playing. And hey, Cohen, let's have a rematch when I get out there. I'll be looking forward to it. Cheers. Well, as you can see, my beer is almost empty, and that means we're at the end of the show. If you want to contact me, you can reach at this email address. Chess is a classic game that everyone should know how to play. I hope my introduction helped you and piqued your interest so that you'll play it some more. If you like the show, please click that like button. Of course, if you want to get notified of new shows, you click that subscription button and the little bell icon next to it. This will notify you when a new show has been posted. Until then, keep your beer cold and your interest hot. Cheers.